Hello, everybody. This is Jason, and first things first, I'm going to make an announcement. I'm going to only do one of these a week now because I'm already running into issues with thinking of topics. I do want to keep doing album reviews, but I also like doing other things. So I think I'm only going to do one of these a week, and I'm going to post these on Wednesday of each week is when I'm going to post these. So that's what I'm going to do. So I will try to get one done a week and I will post them on Wednesdays. So that's the announcement. Now, today I was trying to think of something and I was talking with a friend of mine and he suggested a topic of bad songs by good bands. I decided to kind of take a different tack with it, and this is bad albums by good artists, and that's what I'm going to talk about today. So I'm going to talk about some just not very good albums, and I'm going to talk about a little bit why they're not good, and a couple things like that. First of all, why does a good artist make a bad album? Well, they're trying stuff, and when you experiment and you try things, it doesn't always work. And I don't care who you are, but I'd still rather have somebody being experimental and trying something different than, doing the same thing over and over again. To me, there are certain bands that, basically just recreate the same album over and over again. Like Aerosmith. Aerosmith's a good example. I mean, they basically just do the same album over and over again. The Rolling Stones are kind of like that. Their latter albums in their career basically is the same album basically over and over again, really with no real variation. But I'm going to talk a little bit about some albums by good artists that just are not that great. So I'm going to talk about Lou Reed and Metallica's Lulu. The idea of Lulu is it's supposed to be a very intense album. It kind of harkens back. It's trying to harken back to uh, Lou Reed's Berlin album, which is a very dark album with some really, really dark lyrical content. It's one of the darkest albums you'll ever listen to in terms of lyrics. The thing about Berlin, though, is musically, Berlin is very, very pretty. And it's the beautiful music offsets the really dark lyrical content. Whereas with Lulu, it's just really dark and grungy with really evil, bad lyrics, and there really isn't an escape. There was people out there that was trying to say like, well, in 20 years, people will look back on Lulu as a classic, blah blah blah. I'm sorry, as much as I love you, Lou, not this one. It's not going to be a classic. I mean, it's just too miserable. I mean, it really is. It's just a miserable album. And then album number two with Lou Reed is, and actually the next two albums are albums that were produced by this record label called Buddha. I don't know why, but albums that are made on the Buddha label tend to be not that great. So the first one I'm going to talk about is another Lou Reed album called Growing Up in Public, which is by far Lou Reed's most mediocre album. I mean, with songs like Pow Pow Power of Positive Drinking, it's just not a very good album, and it's definitely not up to Lou. And then the next album we're going to talk about that was on the Buddha label is Iggy Pop's Zombie Birdhouse. Now, just think about the name, and that'll already tell you what the problem is. It's just like a really weird album. I don't know what Iggy was thinking about when he created it, what his creative impetus was at that time, but whatever he was trying to do with that album, it was just way out there and really just doesn't connect to anybody. So I don't know what happened with that one, but he just missed it. Another Iggy Pop album that is just kind of a big miss for me is Beat 'Em Up. The cover is kind of funny, but the album itself is just this really kind of sloggy, heavy, kind of, no dynamics, just this really thick, sloggy, heavy bunch of crap. There is one song, which is the lead song, the first song of the album called The Mass that I like. And there's this weird song about, I'm a football baby, which indicates how weird the album is and also indicate, but I still kind of enjoy it anyway, which I don't really get. But the thing about Iggy is that Iggy uses really simple language. And sometimes Iggy's really simple language can say something really profound using simple words. He's really good at that. That's like one of his great strengths as an artist. But sometimes that simple language is just simple language and it kind of comes off as brutish and stupid. And in Beat 'em Up, it's brutish and stupid. So. All right, so next we're going to talk about David Bowie. There's two albums specifically I'm going to talk about David Bowie. Um, and they both are the follow up albums to the very successful Let's Dance album, which actually is a really good album. But Bowie decided to create these other two albums, and he wanted them to be commercially successful. And the follow ups were Tonight and Never Let Me Down. And both of those albums were produced by Niles Rodgers, the gentleman who did also produce Let's Dance. But these albums are just, there's nothing to them. They're just so, they're just so surface oriented. There's just nothing below the surface. There's a song called Blue Jean, which is okay. And then there's, let me see, what's the Never Let Me Down song besides the cover was, I can't even think of it, so it wasn't that great. But they just weren't a day in and day out, which was okay, but it wasn't anything worth paying that much attention to. All right, moving forward with this, I'm going to talk about U2. U2, U2 is a great band, has lots of great albums, but they've been struggling a little bit with some of their latest albums. No Line on the Horizon is just boring, and there's one song called Unknown Caller, which is just like the most unremarkable song that U2's ever done. It's just long and relatively pointless. I mean, especially since they follow that song up from another kind of long and meandering song, which isn't that bad, but it's called The Moment of Surrender. And even the strongest songs on No Line on the Horizon are pretty, yeah, I mean, for a U2 album, they're not that great. And then the latest U2 album called Songs of Experience to me is a pretty flat album. I don't know why U2 thinks they need to be produced like a pop band, but for the love of God, please stop that. It doesn't work for you. You're a rock band. You're not a pop band. I don't want to hear modern pop production on a rock band because modern pop production, unless you're Billie Eilish, is shitty, okay? It's shitty. Thank you. All right. All right. We're going to get into a couple more albums here. I know this is already getting pretty long, but I'm kind of having fun with this one. Uh, and next album is a band that is, to me, is a criminally underrated band, which is Jefferson Airplane. However, the last album that they made before the band finally gave it up, this is their last studio album, Long John Silver, is a pretty forgettable album. There just isn't much there. There's a song called Trial by Fire, that's a good song. And I kind of have a fondness for this goofy song by Grace Slick called Eat Starch Mom, but the rest of it, yeah. Even the Milk Train song, which is a giant, double reference about, the penis. It's like, yeah, okay, whatever. I get it. I don't want to stop your milk train coming. I just want to write it some of the time. Yeah, whatever. You can take that song and throw it away. All right, Pink Floyd. So after Pink Floyd, after the death of Sid Barrett, or after Sid Barrett left Pink Floyd was kind of rudderless for a while, and they released some pretty mediocre songs at this one. But the king of mediocre albums has definitely got to be Adam Hart Mother. Adam Hart Mother is just, I don't know. There's really not anything in it that really interests me. There's a song by Gilmore called Fat Old Son, which is, I don't know, it's okay, but it ain't great. And then next, we're going to talk about the two REM albums that. Now, REM is a band I really love, and I have every single REM album. Well, I might have got rid of Around the Sun, which is the first album I'm going to talk about. Around the Sun, really just kind of no soul at all. No angst, no passion, no fire, just really bland. The lead single is Leaving New York, which is kind of meh. And then there's another song on there that's okay. And then the album right before it was an album called Reveal, which also was pretty mediocre. I mean, Reveal had a song called is it that sugar cane that tasted good? That song, I don't remember what it's called right off the bat, but it was an okay song, but it would have been like a B-side song on Out of Time, if you know what I mean, and that was the best song on the album. So that one was pretty weak. Another album I want to talk about is Santana Shaymin. So Santana had Supernatural, was a big hit, where Santana was teaming up with pop stars, and it was okay. It was kind of interesting because Santana could take somebody like Rob Thomas and elevate them and make them better. It was all right. But they tried it again with Shaymin. But the problem was is the people that Santana teamed up with on Shaymin just weren't that great. And even though Santana can elevate everybody to a certain degree, you know, when you're dealing with like Michelle Branch is the best other person that he's working with on the whole thing. He can only elevate that stuff so much before it's just like, yeah, whatever. I don't care. And then lastly, we're going to talk about is the last, I believe this is the last Black Sabbath album with Ozzy. So the Black Sabbath albums kind of, you start off with Black Sabbath, the first album, which is a good solid album. You peak at Paranoid, and then you kind of go through a downward spiral. They get a little bit worse, a little bit worse, a little bit worse. And then you get to Technical Ecstasy. And that's an Ozzy Black Sabbath album. And, all the Ozzy Black Sabbath albums, generally speaking, at least have a couple really good kicking songs that are nice. But Technical Ecstasy, pretty much worthless. There really isn't anything on there. I grabbed it because I was hoping that because it was the last of the Ozzy era Black Sabbath albums that it would have something, but it doesn't. Don't get me started about the Ronnie James Dio stuff. I hate Dio. He is awful. I can't stand anything that Dio sings. Anything. He drives me up a frickin' wall. I know there are people that worship at the altar of Ronnie James Dio, but I am not one of them. Sorry. So, once again, just to make this all clear, every band makes bad albums, especially if they try to do things. And it's okay that you make bad albums. Occasionally, everybody does it, and I'd still rather have a band that takes chances and occasionally misses the mark than have somebody that basically just does the same thing over and over and over and over and over again until the end of time. Anyway, that's going to wrap this up for today. Sorry about the coughs, but I do have a little bit of a raspy voice today, which I'm sure you can pick up. Thank you for listening, and you have a great rest of your day.